All gas, no brake.
And now we have liftoff. Welcome to the Now We Have Liftoff New York Jets podcast. I'm your host, John June. And of course, wouldn't be a show without my guy, Frank Jim Piccolo. Frank, how we feeling today, man?
Man, I'm feeling pretty good, John. How you feeling?
I mean, as the week ramps up, we get closer. We're out of the weekend now. It's as we record this on Sunday. We're entering our next week. You know, have to have high spirits. It is a new week. We've mourned some things long enough, and so definitely are feeling good about the season as we get closer. We're 21 days out from this football season and the Jets season opener. So Frank, today we're going to we've got a loaded show, a lot to unpack. We got news, we've got help me out, Frank. Well, we've also got to review the last two preseason games of the New York Jets. We also our last installment of the positional breakdowns. Actually, I don't 100% know if that's true. Got to check with production on that. But defensive backs, right? That's what we're talking about today. And then last but not least, you sent them in, so we're going to answer them, talking about those mailbag questions. So, Frank, a lot to discuss today. Are you ready for it?
Oh, I'm always ready for it. As Coach Salah says, all gas, no brake. Let's go, brother.
Hey, man, let's do it, brother. There was so much that I almost stumbled over my words trying to figure out exactly what we were talking about. But you know what? I'm going to blame that on what we had previously alluded to, which is the loss of star. I don't want to say star, but he was the most impactful, the most paid player basically signed by the New York Jets. They expected him to be a star in Robert Saleh's defense, talking about Carl Lawson, who tore his Achilles earlier in the week in joint practices with the Green Bay Packers. And it was really sad because he was having a phenomenal camp. All the murmurings out of training camp were that he was going to have a year. Was giving Mekhi Becton a lot of trouble, who obviously had a good year last year. And then the one of the worst things was before you talked about this, Frank. I'm following Connor Hughes. I'm looking at his tweets. One of the tweets right before, him saying he was down was that he just gets to Aaron Rodgers for another sack. And it's just like, it just kind of just shows you the kind of year that we were expecting him to have. How are you feeling about this, Frank? And what are your expectations for what the Jets kind of do to overcome the loss of Carl Lawson?
Well, first things first, I was absolutely devastated. The first thing I thought was Vinny Testaverde, 1999, that week one game against the Patriots where he ruptured his Achilles. But after I mourned, I started to think about it. And when I thought about the team as a whole this year, we were probably not making the playoffs. And this is going to give us a chance to see those young pass rushers. I tell you all the time, I'm really high on Bryce Huff. And I think he has the potential to be a star in this league if he does all the right things and takes to the coaching. I just think he has that skill set. And you have JFM also. But what you're really going to get to see is how good these young cornerbacks are, because you're not going to get that automatic pass rush without dialing up some pressure. So I think after the season, we're going to be able to tell what direction the Jets need to go in NFL free agency and the rookie draft next year.
Yeah, I think, those are all good points. I think from Bryce Huff is definitely going to be the main guy I look to really you're not going to replace Carl Lawson, right? I mean, he was a $15 million a year edge rusher who fit perfectly, from a body style perspective, speed, power, all of these things. He was phenomenal. So, I just think that that's going to be a major loss. But Bryce Huff, like you said, has some of those same characteristics. Maybe doesn't have the power or the strength that Carl Lawson has, but he has that speed. He's low to the ground. He's got that burst and that bend. And so I think Bryce Huff, I think you're going to see a 3-man platoon here. Bryce Huff, Ronnie Blair, Vinny Curry, those 3 guys, I think, they're not all going to replace Carl Lawson, but each one of them will do something that Carl Lawson did well, whether it's stopping the run, whether it's rushing the passer, whether it's being a leader in the defensive line room. I think all 3 of those guys are going to fill some of that role there for Carl Lawson. And from a free agency and draft perspective, I mean, I think it makes sense. We would have said that the Jets probably need another edge anyway, but I think that they have to go into next year with the 2 first-round picks that they have, with all the money that they have in free agency, to try to add another edge, because you see what happens when this defensive line looks great with Carl Lawson. It does not look as good without it. So, I would really hope to see, Quinnen Williams, Foley Fadakasi, Sheldon Rankins, these guys hopefully step up, because that the interior of this defensive line was a strength already for them anyway. So, again, it sucks. It's football. It happens. Wish Carl Lawson nothing but the best on his road to recovery, but the Jets have to keep playing games.
Yeah, Saleh said in his press conference that the train doesn't stop for anybody. He just got to hope that somebody just jumps on. And, you talked about possibly the Jets getting another edge in the draft last year. I think that depends on Huff and how he looks during the season. If he looks like he could be a stud, maybe the Jets go in a different direction. They get another offensive lineman and they get a cornerback that I think the Jets are probably going to need going forward if they're going to compete.
Yeah, I mean, we're a long ways away, so we'll see how all that plays out. But they also suffered some other injuries. Zane Lewis, he tore his knee. Forget exactly which ligament. I don't want to say the wrong one. So, he's obviously going to end up on the IR. Cam Clark, who, we obviously went through a scary situation, with a neck injury at practice a few weeks ago. He's going to he ended up on the IR. And when you go into the preseason IR, you can't come back to the active roster. So, he's a guy that obviously is going to be out this year for the New York Jets. So, going to see how he can make his recovery. Denzel Mims is nicked up. Lamarcus Joyner is also nicked up. So the Jets are banged up right now. They're kind of feeling it a little bit. Dog days of camp are almost done, but you got to make it out of camp healthy. That's a big thing. And so are you worried about the depth of this team? I mean, we've seen obviously what happens when Carl Lawson isn't out there. We've seen the secondary. Without Ashton Davis and Lamarcus Joyner, I can't even tell you who the starting safety was in the preseason game for the Jets on Saturday. So, Denzel Mims is out. We saw Jeff Smith and Vincent Smith playing yesterday, but obviously we'll get into that a little bit. But are you worried about the depth of this team, Frank?
I'm not worried with the overall depth. I'm a little bit concerned, and we touched on it 2 weeks ago, the depth of the offensive line. Connor McDermott went down yesterday. He had to get carted off. Morgan Moses didn't play for personal reasons, so I hope everything's all right with him. But I think they're going to have to go out and maybe find another lineman.
Yeah, I mean, I've been asking you all week, Frank. I asked you twice this week. I'll ask you a third time here on the show. Are you interested in Philadelphia offensive tackle Andre Dillard?
I'm not. And for one reason only, is that we just picked up our future Hall of Famer, David Moore, and I think he could do everything.
No, that's awesome there. David Moore, somebody obviously you were really high on, and so future Hall of Famer. Let's do it, man. No, but in all seriousness, I think Andre Dillard would be a nice depth piece here for this Jets offensive line. He's got experience playing left tackle. There's obviously he was a first round draft pick of Philadelphia just a few years ago. Joe Douglas was in that organization when that pick was made. I think Joe Douglas was part of the reason why that pick was made as well. So, I think that there's obviously a previous relationship there. There's a need here with the Jets needing depth on the offensive line. We saw George Fant. I mean, it seems like he's, he played the whole game yesterday, right tackle and playing some left, and then also went back to the right. So seems like he's going to be a guy that's going to be expected to be the swing tackle. But we already saw Chuma Edoga suffer an injury. We saw Connor McDermott suffer an injury. Both of those guys are backups at the tackle spots. And so, Alex Lewis, he's recently retired from the NFL, so they're missing some depth on the interior. So, yeah, I do think David Moore is going to fill a nice spot there in the interior of the offensive line. Would love to see if he can get some run at center, but I think that they're going to need some more depth here, especially at the tackle position.
Yeah, because Becton is like the whole key, right? Can he stay healthy? We don't know. He seems like he stayed healthy so far in the preseason, but he's not, playing a lot of snaps. So, you saw them play Fant pretty much the whole second half at left tackle yesterday. So, we're just going to have to wait and see what Joe Douglas does and how they think their backups are going to work here.
Yeah, definitely going to have to see how this plays out, man. But, it's just one of these things that we're just going to have to just hope that the Jets stay healthy. Injuries are something that happen. You see teams stay healthy in the NFL. You see teams don't, it's almost impossible for them to stay healthy. So, these things sort of happen, and you just have to just hope for the best, man. And so let's move on to the next segment, Frank. And if you're not watching on YouTube, or if you are watching on YouTube, make sure you subscribe. But if you're watching on YouTube, then you can clearly see I've got this number 24 here. It's not a Freeman McNeil jersey. It is a Darrelle Revis jersey as we do defensive back day. So that one was there for those that are listening on podcast platform, which you also want to make sure you subscribe to as well, or just make the transition over to YouTube. But anyway, Frank, defensive backs, are you excited to talk DBs today? Frank, you're on mute.
Yeah, that's a beer. But like I was saying, I kind of meh, there's only a couple guys that I'm really, really excited about. I would have liked to see the Jets brought in a veteran cornerback, but I'm always excited to talk about, our New York Football Jets.
No, absolutely, for sure, man. And let's just go down the list, right? I mean, we presume that I say down the list, but I mean like around the defense. We presume that the starting corners are going to be Bryce Hall and Bless Austin. That's the only fair assumption that we can make. And both of these guys, when you think about the Seattle corners, and I say Seattle because that's where Saleh, that's where he really got his experience as a coach in the NFL. That's where he had really cut his teeth. Obviously, was spent time at Houston, but before being the D coordinator with the Niners was with Seattle. And so if you look at the Seattle corners historically, Richard Sherman, Brandon Browner, even recently like Shaquille Griffin or Trey Flowers. Yeah, that one. But if you look at those guys, they're all tall, long arms, over 200, close to 200 pounds or over about 200 pounds. And so you got Bryce Hall. He's 6'1", 202, limited game action last year. I think he started the last 6 or 7 games of the season it was, but he came in, 1 interception, 3 passes defense, 34 tackles. Bless Austin, who spent most of the time in the lineup, was getting shuttled in and out though a little bit, lost some playing time to some of the younger guys on the team like Lamar Jackson, but 4 passes defended, 88 tackles. I know you and I, Frank, we're pretty high on both of these guys, especially Bless Austin, who, despite his struggles, I think that I really like his aggressiveness. I really like, he's not afraid to come up and play the run. And he's getting every opportunity to start here at corner for the Jets. So what are your feelings on these two guys here, Frank?
I like them a lot. And I just think that the defense is going to better suit the cornerbacks that we have now. Like, when you look at it, you had Lamar Jackson, who, when we played the Raiders last year, Greg Williams put him in a terrible spot on that cover 0 call that lost the game. Like, I don't think you're going to see that anymore. And Salah talked a little bit about it yesterday, how, he could scheme things up, but it's basically going to be on these guys to just do their job, win their one-on-ones, win the third down battle. And I think both these guys have the capabilities of being a middle-of-the-road type of cornerbacks.
Yeah, and I think that's what you're expecting, right? Like, you just want to see these guys compete on a down-and-down basis. You want to see them play well in the scheme, because this is a scheme that, again, it's not putting much emphasis on your corners and being able to win in man-to-man coverage as much, but you're playing a lot of cover 3, which, does turn into man-to-man at some point during the route. But, it's better suited for these guys where, they can get their eyes on the quarterback and they could be able to make some plays on the ball, as opposed to last year where they were, put in a lot of tough situations and blitzes and whatnot. Let's talk about the safety position, because, those guys, not really much competition from those guys, but Marcus May obviously making his return, dealing with the contract negotiations with the New York Jets, but he's returning on a franchise tag. He was obviously filling in, he's most of his career he's played as the free safety, but played a lot in the box last year for the Jets, playing that, that strong safety role. Had a career high 88 tackles last year, had 22 passes defense, 2 interceptions. He was a really good, really good piece for the New York Jets defense, and I think he's going to be a really good piece here for this Robert Saleh defense. We already see him utilized almost as like this box safety again. So what are your expectations for Marcus May in 2021?
I think he's going to have a similar year that he did last year, right? Maybe he could make the Pro Bowl. Maybe he could be a second team All-Pro if things break perfect for him. And again, I think this defense is going to suit him. I think that having a coach like Ulbrich is going to suit him, where you have that high-intensity coach that just wants to make sure puts his players in the best position to win. And I think that's going to be important for all the top-tier players that the Jets have, like Mosley and Quinnen also.
Yeah, definitely. I think we're going to definitely see him continue to take an ascension up as one of the top safeties in the league. There's a lot of money out there right now at the safety position. We just saw Jamal Adams, self-proclaimed linebacker, make $17.5 million a year. So, Budda Baker is sitting there at $14 million or $14.5. Justin Simmons is sitting there getting ready to get paid. So Marcus May, he's clearly a talented player, clearly looking to get paid. So I think that, he's going to continue to ascend this year in this defense. And then you have Lamarcus Joyner, who spent the last couple of seasons with the Raiders, used primarily as a cornerback, as a slot corner with the Raiders. He did a lot of that in his college days. Lamarcus Joyner played some safety, played some nickel, played some corner. But most of his time with the Rams was spent as a safety. The Raiders converted him more to a slot corner. He's back here playing safety for the Jets. And, when you hear these Jets coaches speak, you hear Ulbrich say it often. He says that, when you look at what the key to this Robert Saleh defense is, it's having that Jimmy Ward, That was the role Jimmy Ward played, where he would be this free safety, but he'd come down in the box and be able to cover slot receivers or cover tight ends and be that kind of Swiss Army knife from the safety position. And that's how these Jets look at Lamarcus. That's how the Jets look at Lamarcus Joyner. So had 63 tackles, 66 tackles last year, in 5 passes defensed, no interceptions, but he only has 4 career interceptions in 95 games, so doesn't make a ton of plays on the ball or doesn't force a bunch of turnovers. But he's a very strong in the run game. He's a big hitter. He's aggressive, and so I love his style and how he complements Marcus May. What are your thoughts, Frank?
Yeah, you couldn't be more right. I think the Raiders played him out of position last year. I don't think that is what he does nearly as well as playing that free safety and coming down into the box. And I think it's going to be the perfect fit because I think that's what the Jets envision Ashton Davis as. So now you have someone that could tutor Ashton Davis, and then maybe next year or the year after, Ashton Davis is ready to go to play that exactly same role in this defense.
Yeah, I definitely agree there. I mean, would be great to get Ashton Davis back on this team. He's somebody that I know you and I both have high expectations for. He's dealing with some injuries. For Ashton Davis, he played in a limited amount of games. He did end up missing a lot of games last year. Also dealt with injuries last year as well. So it's one of those things that we have to wonder is that what Ashton Davis is going to be? But 34 tackles, 1 pass defense in 10 games. Did start 6 of them for the Jets. Also had that sack on Cam Newton that was called back for a roughing the passer penalty, which is complete bull. I'm not going to say the word, but you know what I want to say. But anyway, what are your thoughts on Ashton Davis and how he could fit into this defense if he makes it back on the field?
Well, first things first, the best ability is availability, and this kid's got to stay healthy. Kind of snake bitten like Blake Cashman a little bit. He'll probably play a lot of special teams like a lot of the young defensive backs that the Jets have. And like I said, I think he's going to get tutored by Joyner. Maybe they go to 3 safety sets where he could see some field time. But I think this year is just going to be like a tutelage year for Ashton Davis.
Yeah, I think so too. All right, let's move to some of these other guys across some different positions, right? Because we haven't talked about the slot corner. We've got a competition going on there. We've got second-year player Javelin Guidry, who played a lot in the slot last year for the Jets, played well, played in 11 games, started 2, but had 22 tackles. He forced 4 fumbles, actually, which is pretty impressive when you consider that he only played. He didn't really play all that much, but either way, he was had okay moments for the Jets. We still, I think some of us, me included, still prefer Brian Poole, but he's in a competition with Michael Carter II. Carter was a hybrid safety corner for the University of Duke, and so he comes in here was a 5th round draft pick of the Jets and has an expectation. Was not a 5th. Was he a 5th round draft pick? Yes, he was a 5th round draft pick. Sorry, brain's going crazy on me. I'm getting confused with the other Michael Carter. But anyway, he was a 5th round draft pick of the Jets, and so he's competing with Javelin Guidry. We saw Guidry get the start in the first preseason game. We saw Michael Carter II get the start in the second preseason game. How do you think this competition breaks out, Frank? And do you have a favorite here?
My favorite's Michael Carter squared, as I like to call him. But I just didn't like when you watched Guidry last year, I just didn't like his mechanics. Sometimes he'd get turned around too fast. He'd get beat on the head fake, especially, the fake out and then coming back in. He was very susceptible to biting too hard on the out. And I just like Michael Carter. I like the speed. I like the toughness. And but in the end of the day, I think you're going to probably see both of them 50-50 on the field.
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately Michael Carter the second probably has the leg up in the competition, mainly because it's the coaching staff, the new coaching staff. They were involved in the selection of his draft pick, but this coaching staff also seems to be one. I mean, I think Pete Carroll doesn't. If Saleh is anything like Pete Carroll in terms of not being afraid to play young guys or I don't think they care. I'm just saying I don't think they care about money or draft status or any of that. The best person's going to play, and so I could see this going either way. I think you probably do see a platoon here at the slot corner position because they're kind of like pitch hitters. You just kind of rotate them in and out. When one's playing well. I'm not even a baseball guy, so I think I'm doing okay with this analogy, Frank. Okay. So yeah, I could see this one going either way. If I had a favorite here, I don't know if I really have a favorite. I guess I'm just gonna not pick the same name as you, so I'm just gonna go with Jav Guidry. Plus, I met a lady on a plane, and she went to Javelin Guidry's from TCU, and so she went to. Is he from G? Oh, maybe he's from Texas. I don't know. Basically, a lady knew Javelin Guidry. So she was on a plane.
She said she knew Javelin Guidry.
How does he have – okay, I'm confused because this whole time I thought Javelin Guidry went to TCU. So, I'm really curious about that. But
maybe
anyway,
a lady lied to you.
Maybe she did. But anyway, Frank, yeah, I'm going to root for Javelin Guidry. But anyway, let's move on to the cornerback position, right? We have some guys there that are vying for some playing time. Brandon Eccles, a sixth-round draft pick of the Jets this year from the University of Kentucky. We have Lamar Jackson, who not that Lamar Jackson, but Lamar Jackson from Nebraska, the cornerback. He started some games last year, like we previously talked about. He's in line to get some competition. Someone who I have not heard from at all, period, since they were drafted, Jason Pinnock. I haven't seen him, haven't heard him, nothing. But I guess he's not really in the competition, but I guess he's there. Fifth-round pick of the Jets. He was the first corner that they drafted, so that was curious to been curious to not see him at all or hear him. But Isaiah Dunn, undrafted free agent. He's in the competition as well. He's in the mix here. Got some playing time yesterday. Any of these guys do you see challenging for more playing time or potentially even starting some games at some point?
I can see Brandon Eccles vying for some playing time. I don't think he's going to be a starter, but just from what I saw, especially yesterday, how he tracks the ball, how he stays on that hip pocket of those wide receivers, it just looks like his fundamentals and his technique is very sound. And I think that's going to be very important to this coaching staff, that if they put you in, you could do what you have to do and not get completely burned out there, kind of like we saw from Dunn yesterday.
Yeah, Echols is a bit Echols is interesting, right? Because he doesn't fit the Seattle mold. And it's interesting because you heard Saleh talk about it the other day. I was watching his press conference, and he talked about how he had Richard Sherman in Seattle or San Francisco. He had Richard Sherman, who was long, 6'3", could run, but he also had Jason Verrett, who was 5'9", 185 pounds, but had super lightning quick agility and feet. So, both of those guys won different ways. And Saleh always talks about, they ask him, what do you want from your character? What characteristic do you most desire from your cornerback? And he said, to win on third down. He doesn't care how you do it. He just wants you to win on third down. And so Brandon Eccles, I think he kind of reminds me of Jason Verrett a little bit. Not saying as a player or anything, but just when you look at their body types, like how they're put together, the fact that they're strictly guys that are 5'10", 179, you almost always want to put them in the slot. Like you almost want to pigeonhole them as like, oh, you can only be a slot receiver or a slot cornerback. But these guys are like strictly outside cornerbacks. And so that part of it is interesting. Brandon Eccles is also a guy with some major speed. He's very explosive. So, I think that there is a possibility here, like you said, that we see Eccles get some playing time. I'm also curious to see if one of these other young guys comes into the fold. We saw Lamar Jackson, high point of ball yesterday. We saw, Isaiah Dunn is obviously long and has flashed in camp. Jason Pinnock, who we haven't heard anything from, but he apparently flashed a little bit in mini camp. So I'm expecting some of these guys to play games at some point throughout the year. So we'll definitely see. Did I miss any of these defensive backs, Frank? I don't think so. Yeah. So let's recap some of these. The Jets have played 2 preseason games. They've only got 1 left. Zach Wilson played 2 series in each of these games. So, played 3 series in the last game. Yeah, it was 3 series. He played 3 series in the last game, and 4 series in the last game. Sorry, everybody, ladies and gentlemen. But 4 series in the previous game, and looked good in both games, right? You want to temper expectations because he's going up against the backups for both the Giants and the Packers. He is obviously, we have high expectations for him, but we are trying to take everything with a grain of salt because he is, he's a rookie. And he's going against backups. But at the end of the day, you want to see how does it look, right? Does he look like he's swimming? Does he look like he's, throwing to the open guy? Is he going through his progressions? And when I watch him, the snaps I've seen from Zach Wilson, you can see he's going through his progressions. He's hitting the check down if it's there. Obviously the arm talent sticks out. There was a throw he made yesterday to Corey Davis on the run that – I could watch that throw on repeat 100 times because he literally is rolling out his like people say, oh, he can't he can make throws without his feet being set. His feet were not even on the ground to be set. He's throwing this ball both feet off the ground, and it's just perfect motion. It just looked beautiful. And Corey Davis is just breadbasket. So Frank, what are your thoughts on Zach Wilson through 2 preseason games?
Well, first, you better hope Coach Saleh doesn't hear you talking about the other team's backups, because he was not too happy with one of the Jet beat reporters that mentioned that yesterday. But like you said, you could just tell Zach Wilson with the flick of the wrist is throwing the ball on ropes. But what I thought was interesting yesterday during the telecast, Ian Eagle said the most important thing for a rookie quarterback is to have a command of the offense. And he said, in his opinion, that Zach Wilson has 100% command of the offense already. And I don't know if he was being facetious in what he was saying or expounding on how he felt. But for someone that's been covering football games as long as Ian Eagle has, to say that about our rookie quarterback was good to hear.
Yeah, I mean, it's honestly not surprising to me because, I think I had said it a while ago, and I had said the same thing about Joe Burrow last year, which was Zach Wilson knew he was going to be a Jet since February or March, right? He had known this, and the Jets had known this. And so, he was learning this playbook, way back when they were having their Zoom meetings and things like that. And so, I think that definitely has a factor here. But this guy, he was making checks in the game yesterday, which was really encouraging to see that he was getting up to the line of scrimmage and changing the play or setting the protection and things like that. I thought that was awesome to see there. Again, for me, how quick he goes through his progressions, that throw to Tyler Kroft, the first one, the first touchdown of Tyler Kroft yesterday, you see him go from one, goes back across the other side. He's like, okay, I can put this ball here. Or the 3rd and 2 conversion to Corey Davis, where he's got him on a crosser route, looks to the right, goes back to the left, and he's got Corey Davis running in the open field. Like, so the game is not too big for him, and I think that part of it is going to translate. Maybe when he's out there against Carolina in week 1 and the bullets are flying, and you've got Carolina starters out there, they're going to play a little faster. But I think he's shown at this point that he's not one that's going to be like a deer in headlights, I think, when the lights come on.
No, definitely not. And I just like the moxie that he plays with, right? When he threw that first touchdown, you could see how excited and how happy he was. And not to knock Sam, but Sam kind of had a demeanor like Eli at times, where he wanted to portray that, this is something that he's going to do on a regular basis, and not to get overly high or overly low. But it's good to see that excitement coming from Zach. Like, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but it shows that he cares. Like, he really wants to put into the work to be the best that he can be.
Yeah, no, I definitely could see that, because Sam wasn't really like a rah-rah guy, and he's even said that before, but Zach is. And I think, for a team like the Jets, who are not used to winning, not consistently at least, right? Like, we need a rah-rah guy. It almost feels like, as a fan base, to kind of lift us up. I think that's why part of the reason why I wanted Baker here so badly, just because, like, he would have been a guy that would have, good or bad, like he would have been, trying to lift up everybody. And I think Zach Wilson brings some of that as well. You could see him, he made a throw against the Giants for a first down conversion, and you see him like I don't even know what he said, but he was very intense and passionate the way he spoke to Morgan Moses right after that first down. So, like, I've been happy to see that. It's definitely something I'm excited about. He seems like he's a good leader. I mean, even when you watch him out there, seems like everybody gravitates towards him. So, I'm excited. I'm excited for what the future holds with Zach Wilson. Also curious to see what the future holds with a guy like Denzel Mims, right? We see this receiving core. Elijah Moore, we didn't even talk about him and his injury, but he's dealing with the quad injury. So he's been held out of the last 2 preseason games and the last 2 weeks of practice. And so left to see what this receiving core really looks like without him. And it doesn't look all that pretty. It pretty much just means Corey Davis becomes the man and gets fed. Jamison Crowder is in his role as the number 2 receiver. Keelan Cole seemed to be that number 3 receiver last week, or the first outside receiver opposite Corey Davis last week. Did not get that same luxury this week, as he was replaced by the Smith brothers. They're not actually brothers, but I'm just going to call them that for the purpose of this podcast. But anyway, the Jeff Smith, Vincent Smith, both played ahead of him yesterday, and so really seeing what this receiving core looks like. Denzel Mims played a lot of special teams. Your boy was in the house with his lovely wife watching the game. So boots were on the ground. We were doing some work. As I was, reporting, I don't want to consider myself a reporter, but I was tweeting it out. Denzel Mims played all 4 special teams units. He was on kickoff return, not as a return man, as a blocker. He was on punt block. He was lined up on punt block as a rusher to rush a punt. Then he lined up as the corner to block the gunner. He was also a gunner on one of the punts, and he ran down on the opening kickoff. So that was meant, apparently, Denzel Mims asked to do those things. But what are your thoughts on this receiving depth chart and kind of how it's breaking down as we head into camp? Head out of camp.
I think it's right. We talked about it the last couple of podcasts, especially last week. Are we afraid of Denzel Mims not getting run? I think it's quite possible, being that they have all this depth, that Denzel Mims doesn't see a lot of snaps. Maybe he sees 20%, 25% of the snaps. That just just loading when you talk about Keelan Cole, Corey Davis, Jamison Crowder, and then Elijah Moore. We haven't even seen Elijah Moore yet. And in the one game that Denzel Mims played, he didn't see offensive snaps until the second half.
Yeah, it was definitely interesting to see Denzel Mims play that late into the game, but he played well. And you know, I know we said it's against the 2s and the 3s, but if you are playing, and I always say this even with rookies, like if you're playing in the preseason game with the 2s and the 3s, like you should look like, and you really should be a starter. You should look like the man. Like you should look like I should be able to watch the field, watch the game and say, oh, that guy doesn't belong with the 2s and the 3s. And Denzel Mims did some of that stuff. You know, there was he had, I think on 3 catches, had over 50 receiving yards. There was a play where it was like 3rd and 18 and Denzel Mims catches the ball for like 8 yards and goes and gets another 10, dragging Giants defenders for a first down. You know, I think there was also another play where he got a first down. Denzel Mims is good with the ball in his hands. I mean, he ran like crisp routes. I wouldn't say he like ran perfect routes, but you know, they didn't ask him to do too much. I think he ran like an out. One catch was an out. The other catch was like a slight in route or dig route. So I think that, you know, he again, physical with the ball in his hands, physical after the catch, you know, kind of like Corey Davis, and where I don't think that they're going to let the first guy tackle them after they catch the ball. Saw a lot of that from Corey Davis. You see a lot of that throughout his career, but definitely these two guys are similar to me. I've been saying that since we signed Corey Davis, and I think that Mims, as the year, I think he makes this roster. I think he will make some impact on this team as a receiver. You know, is it going to be as the 4th or 5th receiver? I'm not sure, but I think he's somewhere in that ballpark, just from a talent perspective on this team.
Yeah, I agree with you. And, you know, maybe next year or the year after that changes, but right now that's the way it is. You know, we talked about it. He came from that air raid offense from Baylor, so it might take him a little while to get his feet underneath him.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. So let's move on to the backfield, right? Like, so the expectation was that my guy, you know, Michael Carter, the first, or Michael Carter from North Carolina, that he would be the guy here in this backfield. But it hasn't seemed that way through two preseason games. So if you're playing fantasy, you know, make sure you check your boy out, Fantasy Football Diagnostics Podcast. Shameless plug. But obviously, Ty Johnson seems to be the guy in this backfield. Tevin Coleman got the start yesterday. He missed the first preseason game for personal reasons, I believe it was, but is there in the second preseason game. He got the first series with the ones, but after that, it was Ty Johnson, and Ty Johnson got a lot of the work in the first preseason game as well. So Michael Carter, he does come in with the 2s, or he gets some snaps with the 1s, but you see most of his time with the 2s. And then Michael Pirine, you see him with the 2s, and he spends most of his time working with the 2s and the 3s. So what are your thoughts there about this backfield, specifically the running backs, and how it plays out?
Well, here's going to be a hot take. If you are playing fantasy football, you better scoop up Ty Johnson, because I think he's going to get the majority. I don't want to say majority of the carries, but I think he's going to lead the Jets in rushes this year. I remember I called you last night while we were watching a game, and I said Ty Johnson is the best running back we have. I like what Coleman did. Michael Carter did well when he was put in the game. LaMichael Pirine, I didn't really see too much of him yesterday. You saw a couple of carries, short yardage situations. But our boy Wesco, I was really impressed with yesterday. I had to I rewind the tape a couple times on those 3rd and 1s that the Jets converted, especially on the first and second drive, just to see. I wanted to look at his technique on those blocks, because it could be difficult coming from the tight end spot, moving to fullback, because now you got to dig out those linebackers that are scraping over the top. And he had his hands right where you wanted to see him. He caught a nice little flare route for I think it was 18 yards to move the chains. It was just good to see.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna, just back to the running back position, briefly. I totally agree. I've been saying it. I've been I said it to you. Like, I've been scooping up Ty Johnson in all of my drafts because he just totally makes sense as a late round guy. I don't think he will lead the team in rushes, but I think in the first few weeks he will lead the team in rushes. He will be the guy. So that's just my thought there. But back to our guy, Weapon X, Trayvon Wesco. I mean, look, man, we sounded crazy saying it, but we're visionaries here. Wesco does have experience doing this. It's not his first time transitioning to fullback. Obviously, played fullback for these Adam Gase teams. He was a Swiss Army knife back in the University of West Virginia. So, definitely not surprised that Wesco can do this, but like to see that he's doing it well, and definitely going to provide a nice weapon here for the Jets as a dual threat option. Whether he's lined up at fullback or he's lined up as a tight end traditionally, I think you have to plan for that accordingly as an opposing defense. Chris Herndon, he's obviously dealing with he's in a competition here with Tyler Kroft as well as Ryan Griffin for this number one tight end spot. He did start the game, but Tyler Kroft got in some playing time with the ones as well. Caught 2 touchdown passes, both from Zach Wilson. So definitely intriguing competition here at the tight end spot. Seems like Daniel Brown might be the odd man out. Was asked to play some fullback. I kind of gave you my decision, my deductive reasoning there, that if they're asking Daniel Brown to play fullback, and if you see Daniel Brown, Daniel Brown, he doesn't look like or play like a fullback. If they're asking him to do that, they're asking him to try to find another way to make this roster. And I don't think that Daniel Brown's making this roster. So it seems like a 3-man competition here between Ryan Griffin, Tyler Kroft, Chris Herndon. Tyler Kroft seems to have the lead, has had some good practices, had 2 touchdowns with Zach Wilson. Chris Herndon's basically been non-existent. So what are your thoughts there for the tight end position? I know you're not happy about Chris Herndon. I know you're expecting him to potentially not make this roster, but what do you have to say, Frank?
Yeah, I my opinion, I don't think Chris Herndon's making the roster. I think he's going to get cut. I do think that it's going to be Kroft's job to lose. It's hard to tell what the Jets are going to do because they do like running those 2 tight end sets. And do you trust the other 2 guys or the other guy? Because Daniel Brown's probably not making the roster, as you said. As I was watching the game and me and you were on the phone, I was like, oh, look at that. Daniel Brown is at fullback. And we kind of talked about probably why he won't make the team, like you so eloquently just laid out there. But yeah, I think it's going to be tough, Like even in this new offense where the tight end is used as a premium, you still don't see any big plays from Herndon except getting a D-back's way so Kroft could walk into the end zone.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that point. Let's move on to the defensive side of the ball. I mean, I know we talked about the offensive line a little bit earlier and the lack of depth there, so we're not going to get too much into it other than that. Dan Feeney, while having a great mullet, not good at football. Yeah. Okay, moving on to the defensive side of the ball. The defensive line, obviously, we had high expectations. Carl Lawson's banged up, so we know that. Quinn Williams has not played. Let's talk about these young guys. I mean, Nathan Shepard, not really young, but he's more of a depth guy. Hamilcar Rashed, who, has flashed to me over these last couple of weeks. Bryce Huff, Foley Fadakasi. What are your expectations here for some of these other guys on the team?
Well, you forgot Hamza Nazardine. I thought he's probably been one of the best linebackers.
He's not on the defensive line.
Oh, I thought we were just doing defense. I didn't realize we were just doing D-line. No, it's hard to tell, right? Because they don't have all their defensive linemen. So, like, I was getting really frustrated yesterday because the Packers were gashing the Jets in the run game, and then I had to remind myself there's no Quinnen, there's no Rankins, there's no Curry. They just lost Lawson. JFM didn't play all that much. So I'm like, let's calm down here a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, definitely agree with that. Moving on to the linebacker position, we didn't even talk about Jared Davis. I mean, it seems like he's going to be okay, but Jared Davis did suffer an injury yesterday during the Packers preseason game, the preseason game against the Packers. But we saw Hamza Nasruddin play a little bit. We saw CJ Mosley was in there for a lot of the game as well. I think Jamie and Sherwood is going to continue to take a step up here. What were your thoughts about the linebacker position yesterday?
Mixed bag. There were some good spots. Jared Davis had a nice play on a little wheel route that he was there to break up. I told you yesterday I thought maybe Mosley shouldn't have lost so much weight because it looked like he was getting caught by some of those tackles and he was having trouble shedding. But again, the Jets don't have a full defensive line where Mosley could run free. So if those D tackles for the Jets are eating up blocks, which would be able Mosley to use his speed to go sideline to sideline. And I thought Nasruddin had a good game, and I didn't really see Cashman out there with the ones all too much yesterday.
Yeah, I'm trying to find the guy's name, but there was a guy out there that got some playing time with the ones on the linebacker position at the weak side spot ahead of some of these other guys. So forgive me for not having that information. If I find it, I'll definitely bring his name up. So y'all, Frank, what are your expectations or what were your thoughts of the defensive back position through these first couple of days of free agency or preseason? Sorry.
Another mixed bag, and that's to be expected with young cornerbacks. They had some good plays and they had some bad plays, particularly Isaiah Dunn yesterday. He would go out and have a good coverage where he's on his hip pocket, and then on other plays, for whatever reason, he'd get lost off a head fake or a body fake. But I think that's going to be what we're going to have to deal with this year, that they're going to make plays where we think that they have the capability of being Pro Bowl cornerbacks, and in other plays, it's going to look like they don't belong in a starting lineup.
Yeah. I mean, definitely feel that with the corners, you're going to see some highs and some lows. But one of the things I said it before, the way May has played, I mean, he's been like yesterday, he was just a complete like savage in the box, just coming down. He took AJ Dillon out. AJ Dillon's a very big boy at the running back position. But I did find the name, have no idea who this kid is. Noah Dawkins. He is getting a lot of run with the starting Jets defense at weak side linebacker. This is according to Connor Hughes, who covers the New York Jets for The Athletic. So do you know anything about Noah Dawkins, Frank?
The only thing I know is when I was listening to Salah's press conference this morning, from when he spoke after the game, he was very high on him and says that he does all the little things right that you want to see. Kind of the same sentiment that when Salah talked about Ronnie Blair, kind of in that same vein. Not the same exact things, because obviously Salah loves Ronnie Blair and said that if you want to win a Super Bowl, you need as many Ronnie Blairs as you can get. Didn't go that far, but he was very complimentary of Dawkins, or how Salah calls him. He calls him Dawk.
Frank, did you know that Noah Dawkins played in 5 games for the New York Jets in 2020?
The New York Football Jets?
Yes, the New York Football Jets. He played his first game was the Raiders game. Then he played Seattle, the Rams, the Browns, and then the Patriots in week 17. So he played from week 13 to 17, primarily as a special teams player for the New York Jets in 2020.
I did not know that.
Learn something new every day.
That's so why we keep you around, John. That's why we keep you around.
So I get paid the big bucks. So Noah Dawkins, 2019 played with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. 2020 played with the New York Jets, and so is getting some run here at weak side linebacker for this Jets defense. So again, they don't care where you came from. They don't care about your draft status. They don't care how much money you make. Noah Dawkins getting some run ahead of guys like Hamza Nasruddin and Jamie and Sherwood. So, Frank, we've got a lot of we basically ran up to the almost to the hour, man. We got to answer these mailbag questions. So let's get to it, man. Our first question, because I was looking up who Noah Dawkins was, I have to get back to the questions.
Would you like me to take it over for you?
You know what? I think I got it. So the first question comes from New Jersey MMA Insight. I think this was on Twitter. Why are we cursed? And so before I pass this one to you, Frank, I'm just going to say, I guess this was a reaction to the Carl Lawson injury. It was a sad day for Jets fans.
It wasn't. This came before the Carl Lawson injury. This came before the Carl Lawson injury.
Oh, okay then. So that being said, why are we cursed? So I guess I would answer this question like, I don't believe in curses per se, right? I mean, you look at, Frank, we spoke about this. You look at the Boston Red Sox, who supposedly had a curse. You look at the Cleveland Browns, who supposedly have been cursed, or the Buffalo Bills, who've been cursed, right? Like both of those franchises have turned it around recently. The Boston Red Sox have gone on to win multiple MLB titles. Yeah, let's go with that one. So I don't believe in that the Jets are cursed. I think they just have been incompetent. And I think there's a difference there. And if you breed it, if you have incompetent people running your organization for 20 years, it's going to look pretty bad. And so I think now with the leadership that they have in place, Joe Douglas, Robert Saleh, 2 competent individuals, I think that you will see less of a curse for the New York Jets. And yes, I put those in air quotation marks if you're listening to us on podcasts.
Yeah, so with older Jet fans, there's the running theme that Joe Namath sold his soul to the devil so the Jets could win the Super Bowl. I don't know if you were aware of that, but there is a running theme of that.
I was not aware of this, but yeah, man, whatever floats boats and finds lost remotes.
Like you, I don't believe that the Jets are cursed. I don't believe in curses. I am a little bit superstitious, but that's where it stops. Like you, the Jets have been incompetent probably longer than 20 years. And if you talk about curses, 1998, they went to the AFC title game. They went to 2 with Rex. So we've had some success here. We had success with Herm, had success with Mangini. Just the last 10 years has been absolute awful. And like you said, they brought in guys that are competent. that believe in the right things, that are working together to turn this page over.
Absolutely, man. So there is that answer. Let's move on to this next one from Way_Blue Jay, Blue Way J, as I know him on Twitter. But anyway, what is going on with Denzel Mims? And we kind of answered that a little bit, but say it again. Denzel Mims he's not, I want to say fighting for his football life, but he's experiencing what it's like to be in the NFL, where one day you can have, you can be put on this pedestal as he was when he was drafted here, to the next day they draft somebody in the same round at the same position as you, and the fan base like immediately loves them, and the coaching staff, you're not that coaching staff's guy anymore. And so I think you kind of saw that mentality. And if you watch One Jets Drive, his conversation with Keelan Cole, just worrying, like focusing on the things that he can control and just working his butt off and just being the best that he can be, because he's got so much potential, and everybody knows it, and he's going to be as good as and as great as Denzel Mims wants to be. So I think that's a long way of saying I think Denzel Mims ultimately will be fine. You see some, there's not a day you couldn't tell me there was ever a day Stephen Hill would say, hey, I want to go play on all 4 special teams units. If Denzel Mims really did that, that shows really good gusto by him. He knew that, hey, if I want to make this team, I got to do other things to help this team win. And then on top of that, go out and play the way he did against the Giants, granted second and third stringers. But guess what happened? That next Tuesday at practice, guess who was getting more first team reps? Denzel Mims. And so he's going to be rewarded for his hard work and his determination. And I think that ultimately we'll see that.
Yeah, those little things don't go unnoticed. Going to the coaching staff, going to Boyer and telling him that he wants to play on special teams, right? That's not going to go unnoticed. But he might just be the odd man out, because Keelan Cole, he got more experience. Corey Davis, like Zach Wilson said, Corey's going to do Corey things. He's probably the best receiver that the Jets have right now. And then you got Crowder and Elijah Moore. It's just a crowded position group right now.
Yeah, no, it definitely is crowded, and I think that's why Mims is trying to do more things, right, to make the active roster. He's trying to find ways to make sure, hey, how do I be a weekly active on this team? So I do agree there are some things, but Denzel Mims has some things that he does well that I think can translate to having success, whether it's, hey, go be our jump ball guy, or hey, Denzel Mims, go block this corner for 25, 30 snaps a game, whatever it is, right? So I think Denzel Mims can do some of those things where it's beneficial to have him on your football team. And so Way_Blue Jay has 2 questions for us. This second question is not his, but this question comes from @FantasyTurf on Twitter. What is the expected Michael Carter snap percentage? And so if I'm really thinking about this, I think you see Michael Carter play maybe somewhere between 20 to 30% of the snaps out of the gate. And I think the expectation would be that as we get deeper into the season, injuries pop up, Michael Carter has more, gets more experience, and you see him enter that 50% range. But I don't think he'll ever be more than 50%. I mean, you've got 3 backs in his backfield at least. I don't think Michael Carter will be more than a 50% snap guy for all of 2021.
Did you just predict he's going to get 50% of the snaps?
I just said I don't think he will get to more than 50% of the snaps.
What do you think he gets to?
I mean, I think, again, I'm projecting that he ramps up as the year goes on, so the season total average will probably look smaller, but I'm thinking that the season total average probably looks somewhere like 30 to 40% of the snaps. But I think if there's going to be a stark difference where, if you average the first 8 games of the season, he's probably in the 20s or 30% of the snaps, maybe in the low 20s. But if you average the last 8, he's probably closer to 50%.
Yeah, I just don't agree with you there. not with Ty Johnson and Coleman in front of him. I think you're looking at probably 30% to maybe 35% those last 8 games.
Hey man, I've never been one to shy away from a friendly bet, so I will always, especially when it involves Michael Carter, I'll always be down to make a bet. But anyway, we have a.
I told you yesterday we'll do the jerseys. Bet me a jersey.
No. Stop trying to spend my money, Frank. But anyway, who will be? This one question comes from Adam Holst Sports on Twitter. Who will be the Jets' top wide receiver this year? And so I think we've kind of answered this before, but I think the number one receiver in terms of like targets will be Corey Davis. I think he will be the weekly target getter, but I think you see more big plays, more yards, potentially more touchdowns out of possibly Elijah Moore, right? So I think, again, it's tough, like, because we talked about the range of outcomes with Elijah. But when you talk about if you are projecting Elijah to be like the top end of the range of outcomes, then Corey Davis, I think, would take a hit on some of on being the yardage leader and potentially even touchdown leader there. So again, like I say, I think he leads the team in targets, and so that would put him as the number one receiver that way.
Yeah, when you're looking at the Jets wide receiver core, I think the Jets or Corey Davis will probably lead the team in targets, maybe receptions, and probably touchdowns just because he's going to be that red zone threat. But like you said, in my opinion, Elijah Moore is going to have the most yards out of all the Jets wide receivers.
Yeah, man, definitely, brother. Well, our last question here comes from Robert Nader. Not sure where this question came from, but do you think Becton will turn out to be a bust? And obviously he's talking about Mekhi Becton here. I'm going to say no. People are obviously, I think this question probably stems from the fact that Mekhi Becton struggled early in camp with Carl Lawson. But I was listening to Connor Rogers recently, and one of the things that Connor had mentioned, which no one is talking about, is that the fact that Carl Lawson is just a like, from a matchup standpoint, like he's the perfect matchup for Mekhi Becton. Like he's gonna win that advantage. He's gonna have the advantage in that matchup. It's almost like how when we had Revis, shout out best corner alive, but when we had Revis, we put him on Randy Moss. Like he could play on Randy Moss, but it was much more advantageous to put Cromartie on Randy Moss because they were very similar body types. They were very they both had speed. So it was a little bit more difficult matchup for Randy Moss, who could use his size to try to take advantage of Revis a little bit. So I think about it that way. I think Becton ultimately will be fine. I know there was another report which he was heavier than he had been at the combine, and people had said he lost weight, which I don't really know which way to believe. But at the end of the day, Preston Smith also gave him some trouble a little bit. So that's interesting. I won't be able to make a judgment for myself until I see Becton play a full game. Week 1, he's going to get Brian Burns, so that'll be interesting to see. Brian Burns is a darn good pass rusher, so I'm going to go with no. But again, I'm excited to see what Becton does this year.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm going to go with no too, and got to see how the offensive line looks as a whole. I'm excited to see him play next to Vera Tucker, because if Vera Tucker does what he's supposed to, that could obviously alleviate some pressure off of Becton. But like you said, yeah, Lawson with that ridiculous strength and crazy speed was always going to be a mismatch for Becton, or a mismatch for any tackle in particular.
Yeah, definitely there, man. And so I actually have to I just came to the realization that I actually have a mailbag question that came directly to my personal DMs from, again, Blue Jay Way, at Way_Blue Jay on Twitter. He asked, who will be the Jets starting strong safety for the Jets? And will it be Davis or Joyner, assuming he means Ashton Davis, or will they both play on passing downs? We kind of answered that earlier as well during the defensive back segment, but Marcus May seems to be the strong safety for the Jets. Lamarcus Joyner seems to be the free safety for the Jets. Ashton Davis presumably will have some sort of role in, I think, I said it before when they signed Lamarcus Joyner, that free safety looks have got to be the way to go here for this Jets defense, because you're just way too talented there and not talented enough at corner. So I think that you would see them both play on passing downs, but that's just, again, me guessing here without actually not knowing what Robert Saleh and company intend to do.
Yeah, I'm right on board with you there, John.
Yeah. All right, sorry, go ahead.
No, we're good.
I was saying let's wrap this up. We're 10 minutes over. We try to keep episodes under an hour for everybody's well-being, but hey, maybe just take the long way to work this time. Go take some detours so you can eat up this last 11 minutes here. But Frank, this was always fun, as it always is. Everyone, we appreciate you for listening. Make sure you are following Frank on Twitter at FrankieBots with the Z. If you're watching on YouTube, then you would know that. But you can follow me on Twitter at JRFootballNerd. You can also follow me on Instagram there as well. If you want to go follow Frank on Instagram, he's at FrankieG53. Also, make sure you are following the show at liftoff_NYJ on Twitter, and that now we have Liftoff on Instagram. And should have led with this, but this is basically your reward for staying the entirety of the show. If you want to win a signed Wayne Corbett, best slot receiver to ever be a slot receiver, don't ask. Godfather of all slot wide receivers. You want to win a Wayne Corbett signed mini helmet, you just got to do like 4 things. It's really like 5, but you only like 2 of them are hand in hand, right? First one, you got to go follow us on Twitter at liftoff_NYJ. Then you got to follow me on Twitter at JRFootballNerd. Then you got to go follow Frank at FrankieBots with a Z. Then you got to retweet the pinned tweet on the Now We Have Liftoff Twitter account. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Take a screenshot of that. Leave it under the pinned tweet. And you're entered for a chance to win this signed mini helmet. Simple. Doesn't cost you anything. And you should already be subscribed to the show and following us anyway. So if anything, we're just asking you to do something that you're already doing. So everyone, if you want to win that, make sure you check it out. But other than that, if you see this lovely StreamYard overlay that we have, the new boxes that we're in, Frank's got his own box over here. I've got my own box over here. It's because we're on StreamYard now. And the only way that was made possible was with the Pigskin Network. So this show going forward will be brought to you by the Pigskin Network of Amaze Media. So we're definitely happy to do that. We're glad to be, that they were able to bring us on and sponsor our podcast so that we can continue making phenomenal content. So everyone, with that said, we appreciate y'all. We appreciate the love and support. Could not have done this without you, any of it. And again, we're only in episode 14 rather. Can't wait to see what we got cooking for the rest of the season, because once we get to regular season, we'll be 1 show a week. So, oh man, it's going to be lovely talking Jets.
All gas, no break, brother.
All gas, no break, man. Definitely hitting that gas into September. But everyone, we appreciate y'all. Thank you so much. And we are out of here.
Much love.
Peace.